lunch, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always think what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, don't need a big. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thinking for something. Don't take for granted, say humble. Now wake up, it's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror, it is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, 'cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. I'm so gone, no I'm never turning back. I won't stop, I'ma fight until the night around. It's so what? You're gonna be hurting back, 'cause I'm in the hell and back. You don't wanna make me mad, I stay strong. You will never see me crack. And if you get in my way, then I'll wait around. Gotta say it to my face, while I'm looking back. Moving racks after math, when I have I attack. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop.
Can you see me breathing? Standing here without you. I can see it's midnight. Can I live without you? I'm terrified to see you, hiding in the darkness. Colder when it's twilight, and I'm feeling restless. Too close, too much, too far gone. I'm yours, you're mine, too far gone. I'm bleeding, too far gone. I see it, too far gone. Too far gone. Can you see me breathing? Standing here without you. I can see it's midnight. Can I live without you? I'm terrified to see you, hiding in the darkness. Colder when it's twilight, and I'm feeling restless. Too close, too much, too far gone. I'm
All right. Welcome. I'm gonna adjust my camera here because I need to get my face in the middle. There we go. Welcome everyone to our Week 15 rundown, our All-Star episode. I am jacked up for tonight, and can I just start us off and say that, guys, Cal has outdone himself. You are about to witness greatness tonight.
Well,
man, how are you?
Listen, it's celebratory. Obviously, we made it to the halfway point. Well, beyond the halfway point, but we are at the break. And of course, I had to break out a little bit of some fancy schmancy. We got the
I love it, man.
Comic book baseball tie that I hardly ever get to wear. So, and it's over the polo, which is a new fashion trend that's coming in. It's tie over polo. Not something you see every day. But yeah, we're breaking out the big guns for the big fancy episode, the All-Star Mid-Season Awards.
I love it, man. I love it. It's good. Good stuff. It's honestly just setting the mood, setting the vibe for
Formal,
tonight.
Professional.
100%. It's going to be, I'm going to say professional casual, maybe, just because it's going to get a little crazy a little bit later. But yeah, it's going to be spicy tonight. But just to kind of start things out, we're going to go through kind of our normal routine. We're still going to check in on power rankings. We got some interesting stuff there. We're not going to look at any transaction stuff for this past week. There were a couple notable things, but nothing that we felt like needed to be added in today. And then we'll take a look at the week ahead like normal, and then we'll move on to our All-Star stuff, and I'll kind of talk more about that once we get there. So with that being said, I will move us over to our power rankings and our standings. So why don't you kick us off? What were some of the things from the past week in terms of changes that you saw?
Yeah, first thing, the ever interlinked Cubs and Pirates have now both at the same time fallen out of the top 10. It's been a minute since they've both been out of it, but that's what happens when you have the same record all year. Anything that happens, you guys, take the fall for it. So,
yep.
But with two NL teams dropping out, Mariners, of course, going back up, that has a half split, 5 NL teams, 5 AL teams in the top 10.
It's crazy.
I know we've been kind of talking where it's like the NL is very skewed, that we're probably going to see a champion of the NL. But to see like a split between both leagues in the top 10 it's pretty cool to see, honestly.
Yeah.
So, something that kind of caught my eye.
Well, and I mean, there's something to be said about the top 4 teams being from the NL, but who's counting, right? Who's counting? It doesn't matter. Top 10's top 10, right? It doesn't matter what place it is. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that, just like looking at those two teams in general. Like even last week, their strength of schedule was separated by like 66 tenths of a point in terms of average. So it's just like, yeah, it's just nuts. They've been super close all year. For me, you mentioned the Mariners, them moving up 5 spots, getting back into the top 10. Seth has obviously done a lot. He's made plenty of moves to help himself. His team has also performed really well against some decent competition. So that's moved him back up. And then the one NL team that's not in the top 4 that we just mentioned, the Mets, they're moving up 3 spots back into the top 10 themselves as well. So they're looking, obviously, he's been climbing for weeks. We know that. He's been playing well, so he deserves to be in the top 10 as well. But that was kind of my second one. How about you?
Well, what I had Nationals actually going 2-1. Probably should have gone 3-0. They had a phenomenal week. Put 350 points. It was not enough to get past the Phillies' great week. Put up 367.
Crazy.
But that Nationals team, I mean, doing everything we thought they were going to be doing.
Where was this, man?
Now, it sucks. It sucks. It would have been an insane race to the pennant if all 4 teams.
It's
were,
crazy.
Battling it out like this. I guess you can't say it's over. It's pretty much over. But still, the way that the Nationals are playing, it feels a lot less over than it should, I guess.
Well, and just looking at
it's a huge deficit to come back from.
Yeah, 100% it is. And looking at their, even where their score is, they've finally kind of caught up to that top half tier, right? Yeah. Like Brendan's the only playoff team right now that's kind of below that tier. He's a few behind, but
top 5 teams.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like 60 points behind the A's in power ranking score now, in terms of just meeting that threshold there too. So he's only a few hundred away from jumping up to the top half, and then he's only a few hundred more points outside of that, looking at pushing the top 10. So if they keep moving like that, it'll be pretty interesting. My last piece that I kind of saw was just the Dodgers taking first back from the Giants. Again, those two are separated, and the Cardinals are up there as well. They're separated by a minuscule amount of points. All three of them separated by less than, just over 60 points, 62 points between the three of them. So pretty crazy stuff. But obviously, Joe deserves to be up there. His team's been playing well. So. Anything else standings wise, power ranking wise, you felt was interesting?
I think I dropped 3 spots. That's pretty interesting, actually. I thought that was quite interesting. I won a game. What the heck?
Yeah, right.
I should automatically stay the same.
And you look at you look at the scores too. So I think probably the big change for you. So Cleveland dropped 1 and they played a really hard schedule. The Braves moved up 1. They played a decent schedule. The Diamondbacks moved up 3. They didn't play much at all, but it looks like they probably scored a decent amount if we look at the.
Oh, they had I remember seeing them. I was like,
yeah. So like their win-loss modifier and their point modifier are both at 4s. So that's way higher than where they are ranked down here. They should technically be at 2s. So that's a big reason why. Whereas yours were at 3s. So. That explains the difference right there. So, which again, another example of that hot cold modifier, right? Even if you get a win, right? If you haven't been necessarily playing at the highest level or whatever it might be, it might not matter as much. So, standings wise, I was just going to mention, Steven obviously gained a couple of games on me in the AL lead, which I think is significant. My team was absolute garbage last week. I have 3 or 4 pitchers that are on the IL right now still, so it's been rough sledding for me. And then in the NL, Rourke's still got a 2-game lead over Jeff right now, which is pretty significant as well. So outside of that, though, I think that's all we pretty much had there. Again, we're gonna move over the transactions this week, and then we'll move on to our current week preview. So why don't you kick us off? What did you have? I know the games weren't necessarily great this week. The slate isn't fantastic across the board, but there were a few things we wanted to point out.
Yeah, it's not too incredibly fun, but it's going to be a nice father-son matchup going into the second half of the season. We got the Angels and the Red Sox, so I'm pretty excited for that. It's going to be a little bit of bragging rights in the household. So I'm hoping, I'm needing that win bigly, especially because I'm going up against the Mariners and Orioles, so I can pretty much write off any other chance of a win for the week. So yeah. I just need to get one. I think the goal is just win 1 a week from here on out until the season ends, and just basically run the clock out essentially. So
money's money, right?
Money is money.
Money's money.
Another one I had was Dodgers with a little bit of an uphill battle. It's not much is uphill for the Dodgers, but at least it's going to be a little bit tougher for them this week, playing the Cubs, the Pirates, and the Athletics. All going to be a little bit on the tougher side. Now, it's only, I think, team that I saw that all 3 of them might be a challenge as far as teams that are actually, good teams, because there are some bad teams that are playing some absolute mismatches. But Dodgers are actually going to have a rough go of it. But with that, since they're both the Cubs and Pirates both playing the Dodgers, will they finally break their tie? We're on tie watch. We're hoping that something happens where this Cubs Pirates thing back and forth will finally snap. I don't see it happening. I just see some fate befalling them that they just still stay deadlocked.
We're going to add in the tie watch with the win watch every week now too, it seems like, because that's been going on about as long as the win watch has.
Yeah, it's got to be since like the beginning of June.
It's crazy.
It's just every week.
It's crazy. But yeah, I agree with you. There weren't not necessarily a ton to pull from. Another rivalry, though, I said that includes me, Brendan and I going at it this week, Kansas City and Minnesota. So that'll be a lot of fun. Him and I always usually chirp at each other when we're playing. So would not shock me if I play the Braves and Padres, which I'm hoping I should be able to muster up enough of a week to beat them, but would not shock me if Brendan beat me with how my team has been playing recently. A lot of it will depend on if I get all these pitchers back after soon after the break here. But so it was that, and then win watch, like I mentioned. Tom's got the Cardinals this week, so a loss. He's got Toronto this week, so probably a loss, and then he's got Milwaukee. Also, probably his easiest matchup, but also probably a loss.
Yeah, it's
so tough week for Tom. We'll have to see kind kind of how he does. But anything else about that?
Well, I'll say for your guys' matchup, and this is just because college football's on the brain right now for obvious reasons. But the Kansas City Minnesota matchup is very reminiscent right now of like an Auburn Alabama matchup.
Totally.
Where it's like Auburn is the only thing they're playing for all year is just beat Alabama. And the season's a win at that point. Bama's trying to win it all, and Auburn's like, hey, dude, we kept it close. We were within like one score. So that's kind of what I'm foreseeing. And if Brendan beats you, it's gonna be tough for you, man.
As long as I'm Alabama in that scenario, I'm all right with it. That's okay with me. I'm being compared to Nick Saban, and he's being compared to a few different coaches who just aren't as good as Nick Saban. That sounds good to me. That sounds good to me. All right. Well, with that being said, again, not a ton from us this week. Didn't necessarily want to take a ton of time up because we got all-star stuff. I got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. And again, I mentioned earlier that Cal really outdid himself. This man, as we know, is already good with PowerPoints. That's how he builds out his tier list every week. And so this man put together an all-star PowerPoint for you guys to kind of break down our rosters, our awards, etc. So before I go to that PowerPoint, essentially what we're going to do is, or what we did, was each of us went through and we selected an all-star for each position, and we took starting lineups in ABL. So you have a catcher through utility for hitters, and then you have 3 starting pitchers, 3 relief pitchers, and then 1 random pitcher, could be starter, could be reliever, etc. And then on top of that, we had 1 honorable mention hitter and 1 honorable mention pitcher to go along with that. The only caveat for all of this was that we had to have at least 1 player from every team. That player could be just an honorable mention if there was a team that was just trash and didn't have any true all-stars, but I didn't look through specifically your list, but I know I'm pretty sure in the AL that was not the case. I had starters across the board for every team, including Tom as well.
Mine's very top heavy. I feel like yours is more balanced. We'll get into it a little bit later, but which I guess it's pretty top heavy, to be honest. But the caveat of the player from every team made the whole thing.
100%.
It could have been super boring. Like, just pick the highest point total from each position and call it good.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's like maybe 5 teams represented in that.
Yeah.
Not fair. So everyone having to be involved, I had to make some seriously tough choices.
Yeah, dude,
like,
it was
my
crazy.
First base position, I had 4 different first basemen in there, and I had to settle on one just because it's like, in the whole grand scheme of things, it probably adds up more points, and then it's just it just sucked. Made some hard calls.
And the strategy too about how, like, okay, I could put this guy at first base, but then that means I can't have X player in left field or something like that, right? Or whatever it might be. And so, like, trying to find that balance of where teams fit in to make sure I had a spot for guys that were truly actually all-stars. So we'll go through that, go through our lineups, and then we have some awards. We have player awards, and then we also have team awards. Obviously, saving the team awards for last. Those are probably going to be our most spicy awards, I would like to think. But yeah, so let's get into it. So I'll pull this up here, make sure we can see it. Beautiful. So this is Cal's fantastic presentation. We are sponsored by Discover, just so everyone knows.
You may see the MasterCard logo at the bottom. That is fake.
Yep, we finally.
That was an accident.
we finally got sponsored. It took 16 weeks, but we got there.
Yes, 100%. We tried to get Visa, they declined, which is not the first for me and Visa. But yeah, we got Discover instead. So yeah,
awesome, man. I love it. All right, so let's get into it. Our first lineup, we'll go to the AL here, and I'm just going to kind of go down position by position. And then essentially, if you want to, feel free to kind of chime in afterwards and any surprises or whatever it might be, and we'll just kind of go from there if that works for you.
Absolutely.
So all right, starting at catcher from your team, first and foremost, took Adley. I've had a good year for now. There were actually surprisingly a good amount of decent catchers on AL teams. But I felt like for your team specifically, was playing well. Young guy, deserved to make it. First base, this was interesting for me, and it's funny that you said you had a bunch of first basemen, because first base was, I think, the last position I filled.
Yeah, I see why.
Yeah.
It's all NL. I'm looking at the top, and it's like I think out of the entire top 8, there's one AL first baseman.
Yeah.
And you had him, you picked him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they made it pretty easy.
It's crazy. So the Naylor's had a really good year, and again, probably not a guy you look at and say, "Oh my God, he's an all-star," right? And Gary has obviously a really good team. There were plenty of different guys to choose from, but Naylor just fit in best here. It felt like he's had a really good season, and to be honest with you, again, in our league, being that only first baseman in the AL that high, it felt like he deserved to go there. Next, Boston took Ozzy off of your dad's team. Was tough to find. He was one of the harder teams to find someone that fit in. Ozzy's having a good year. It's not necessarily a fantastic year, but he's having a good year. And then third base, this one was pretty easy for me. J-Ram, he's having a ridiculous year so far this year, playing out of his mind. He's been amazing for me. So that was an easy fill in there. Adamus from, I think it's Adamus. Is that how you say
Adamus?
it? Adamus, maybe? It could be either way.
I don't.
We'll call him Willie.
I'm 1 for 2 right now.
We're just going to call him Willie.
So.
We're going Willie. Willie from the Guardians. Again, Mark's team was tough, especially because he's got a ton of injuries, tons of injured guys that I know he drafted and stuff too. But Willie's had a good year, deserved to be there. Tom, then, in left field, we grabbed Wyatt Langford. Again, young buck has had a really good year. Future all-star in the majors, just in general. He just deserved to be there. Tom actually had a couple of guys I considered on his team, but Langford seemed to fit the most. Center field was also another one that was tough for me to find. I ended up going with Nimmo from the A's. The A's actually have 3 all-stars in the AL, which is pretty crazy. They have 3, and Gary has 2. But yeah, Nimmo has had a really good year. And again, of the other center field choices, there were other center field. Outfield was interesting because there were eligibility pieces, right, where guys could fit in different positions. But Nimmo has played well and deserved it there. And then last outfield position, I went with Brian Reynolds from Tampa. Reynolds has, not shockingly, had a good year and deserved to fit in that spot there. He was the best right fielder I saw out there. Utility spot, this is a no-brainer for anyone who knows baseball, but Ohtani is there. He's had a massive year. He's literally, I didn't even realize this, he's averaging over 5 points a game. That is stupid. That is stupid. That's not even like, I don't even, that's just dumb.
He's gotta be banned from pitching now.
Dude,
I know they paid that for him to pitch, but I mean, he's so good at hitting. How do you have
like 5 points, dude? 5. Has there ever been a 5 point per game batter? Ever?
I mean, maybe for like a week. Like
that's what I mean, though. But for a fucking season,
we're pulling up Acuna. This should be pretty easy.
Golly,
available players and pull him up and go to the stats from last year. So Acuna last year was 5.5.
Jeez, and how many games did he play?
I think he played the full season.
Full season.
He had like that 70 still season, all that jazz. So he played 159 games.
Golly, man, holy!
First mistake.
That's crazy. Okay, I guess maybe it has happened before, so it's not as crazy.
But Acuna was such a ridiculous season. I don't know.
True.
He was far and above anyone else in that year. So I think Ohtani being this year's Acuna feels pretty fair.
True, and I think Ohtani probably isn't stealing many bases. I would imagine. So he's doing it. He's doing it truly from probably a power perspective, right, or a batting average perspective. So that's the hitting lineup. And actually, you know what I think? What do you think? Do we go on to pitchers, or do we move over to the NL and do the NL starting lineup? I just thought about that. What do you think?
People they've already seen the pitchers. Maybe we should just go
That's
to
true.
the pitchers.
That's true. Let's go through the pitchers.
It's already been spoiled.
Good point. Forgot they were already on the screen. Yeah, all right, so moving on to pitchers then. So SP1 Wheeler from Baltimore has had I'm pretty sure all 3 of these guys are 20-plus point per game pitchers so far this year, which is just insane.
Yeah, Sale's 21 a game. Wheeler 19.31.
Okay, so close.
And then who's the third one? I
Skeens.
had to go back. Skeens. Paulie. I had to I'm going by.
He's like I know he's 20 something.
I had to go by per game. Oh, 21.42.
Yeah.
So yeah. they all average out to 20.
It's
so
crazy, man.
Really solid.
All three of them are nuts. There were a couple of other starting pitchers as well that were really close to making this cut, but these three just seem to be having the most consistent year. I mean, Skeens for sure has been nuts. Sale has also been nuts. Wheeler has been his consistent self, as he always has been. So felt like those three deserved it. From a relief perspective, Suarez from the A's, second guy from the A's. He's been lockdown guy, great for the real life San Diego Padres. Jeff Hoffman from Houston, he's like a 5-something, I think, closer right now, which is a 5-something per game closer, doing well. And Kimbrel was pushing 5, I think, as well, for Sam and the Rangers there. So really, I was actually surprised at how many good relief pitchers I found. And out in the AL West, all three of them are from the AL West.
Oh yeah,
which is crazy.
Man,
that
got in on that,
that to me was kind of surprising. But and then the last pitcher in the starting lineup, Ronaldo Lopez from the Tigers. I had no clue the type of year he has had.
I mean,
17.
From the Sparp,
Golly.
that's crazy. 17 from a Sparp is nuts.
That's what I mean. It's just like he's been out of his mind this year, and so I felt like he deserved to kind of be in that pitching slot. And then last two, the honorable mentions, probably not surprising, but Ellie, also from the A's, he's having obviously a crazy good year. And then Schoolball as well from Gary. I mentioned one of those pitchers earlier that could have made the starting lineup. Schoolball's been stupid good too. So that is the AL rundown. So any big takeaways from you that you kind of see just looking over from it?
I was surprised that seeing Nimmo, Duran and Nimmo. What was the I don't know. I just thought they were so close that I thought maybe you'd go different with second baseman, because Albies wasn't like one of the best second basemen in the AL. But then it's like when you move one piece, you have to move all the other pieces.
Yep.
It's just so aggravating.
That was the issue, man. I had Duran in there initially. He was the center fielder initially, and then it just, however I was going through it, it just didn't work. I just had it just didn't make sense. So I had to change it up. So
that's kind of where I felt. I feel like my pitching sucks. I already said that, I think, but it's just because I couldn't justify pulling anyone from the from the infield and outfield.
Yeah.
So it was honestly a lot of fun constructing the rosters, but that was one thing I noticed. So just like, I don't see how else it would work. I guess.
Yeah.
Having Duran in there.
It's crazy.
But just one of those things. They're so comparable though. I don't think it really matters.
True. At least from a points perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like, very similar.
And then Langford, but I thought Duran would be like over in left, because Duran's way above Langford in points.
Yeah.
But then you got to get a White Sox player.
You got to get someone from Tom.
Exactly. So no one's going to be happy.
Yep.
That's the truth of it all.
Yep.
So, it's just really solid, well-balanced roster. I think it has more balance than mine will have, especially the honorable mentions. Those honorable mentions rock.
I know, right? It's pretty good. Pretty good coming off, off the bench.
Pitcher, and then the second best pitcher in the league right now. And then let's take a look at the number 3 shortstop.
Yeah.
So I mean, the best shortstop in the AL. Actually. So, crazy.
Yeah.
Solid.
Alrighty.
Over to the National League here.
On to the NL. Here we go.
So, yeah, we are loaded in the outfield. We got the Phillies with Juan Soto in center field, Aaron Judge. I mean, both these are pretty obvious picks, I feel like. In left field, this is, again, it was still, I had Yordan out. I had him back in. I had him out. And I figured I had to have Yordan in there. So Pirates get some credit here.
It's like the real life outfield.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, it's like the actual All-Star game on this thing here, because even then, most of these are AL guys. On the AL team, so it feels kind of fraudulent. But within the infield, I love this infield. But Bobby Witt and Gunnar, I knew no matter what, these two had to be on the team.
Yeah,
I could not justify them not being on the team. So I had to do whatever it was to make it work.
Yep.
And that's where I started sacrificing other things like pitching. And again, Pirates get a double nod here.
Yeah, I see that.
The outfield infield. Phillies get a double nod here with Soto and Wright, and then Spencer Steer. I could put him wherever I wanted to. I put him in second just because it's the most valuable, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Then the hardest decision I had to make was first base. I had it locked in at Harper, but then I wanted to do Freddie. Then I felt like it should be Christian Walker. And then finally I was like, wait a minute, I only have 14 teams listed here. And I was like, oh no, I'm missing the D-backs because they're at the bottom of the very bottom of my checklist. And I left them off, and I was like scrambling. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, dude, Vladdy is by far their best hitter.
Yeah.
I gotta include him because they had Corbin Carroll, but I didn't want to bump anyone out, But it just like it had to be Vladdy,
Yep.
and I had to retire Harper. Harper was locked in for me initially just because his point. I think his point per game is closer to. Let's take a look at his points per game. Harper is at 4.36, which at first base for how many games he's played is far and above anyone else in the position.
Yeah.
So I just thought he should have been a lock in my head, but again, it just wasn't working out. So that's our outfield and infield. Of course, at DH we have the Marcelo Zuna for the Giants, who had to have been just a massive boost to that Giants team. Not what you would have expected. I mean, Ozuna had a great year last year too, but not like this. I mean, he has taken that. Acuna has been down, and he has taken that helm and just ran with it. And then I got Yainer Diaz at catcher for the Padres. That was another one where I kept flip-flopping. I had a couple of guys in that slot. I think it started out with Salvi.
Sure.
Then I went to Cal Raleigh, and then it ended up with Diaz, which is not that horrible of a drop, but it wasn't my initial pick, admittedly.
Yeah.
So then my honorable mentions would be Freddie Freeman for the Dodgers. Hard to leave him off the list, and also the fact that I hadn't had a Dodger player on here, even though I think they have a pretty solid lineup. And then, of course, we have our honorable pitcher being the Reds. I mean, I had to get a Red in there. So we had the Reds' best pitcher was Jose Barrios.
Love
so
it.
had to throw him in there for the mix. Then we have our rotation. We'll kind of round out here. We got Seth Lugo for the Giants, Cole Reagans for the Brewers, Ronel Blanco for the Cubs, which is honestly he was a lot better than I thought he was.
Crazy. He's had such a good year.
I know. And I just I didn't have a Cubby on there. He was, again, one of those guys that just stuck out like a sore thumb on that roster.
Yep.
Put him in the rotation.
Yep.
Absolutely. I'm very okay with the bullpen. I have a spark option here with Lorenzen. I don't have Lorenzen pulled up right now, but it's solid points per game. And then the only Cardinal on the list, which I was surprised that we only have one Cardinal, but this is the Cardinal, Ryan Helsley. Hells Bells. 300 points as a reliever.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I mean, my word.
It's nuts.
This guy he's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's been phenomenal all year. And then Emmanuel Clace for the Marlins, which another phenomenal reliever.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty good if we can get into the 8th inning. We got this thing locked up. And then we have the Rockies as our pitcher flex slot, and having Jake Irvin rounding it out.
Yeah.
That will be your 2024 NL All-Star roster.
I love it. It's crazy. And again, I'm seeing this really for the first time stuff and looking at it. And the first thing that came to my mind was, where are the Dodgers and Cardinals?
I know.
That was the first thing on my mind. And I think what's actually interesting about it, though, is it's like you have, for the Giants, you have the DH, you have Dodgers, you have an honorable mention, and Cardinals, you have a relief pitcher. I think that goes to show actually how deep they are. They don't have a ton of super good guys.
Yes.
They just have guys at every position that contribute, right? Whereas a lot of these teams
over
probably
2.8 a game.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
what these teams are doing.
Yep.
And it's hard to beat that day
Yep.
in, day out. So that is 100%. Because I was looking, I'm like, I'm doing something wrong here. But I'm like, no, these teams don't have that guy.
Yeah.
Like, the Phillies are living off of these two guys.
Yeah.
100%. If you look at their lineup, it's Soto and Steer.
Yep.
And I got to give the nod to those two guys. They've been incredible. But yeah, the Dodgers and Cardinals they're just so well balanced.
Yeah.
Which is, it's tough for an all-star roster, but yeah.
So now my question to you, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but my question for you now is, who wins?
I 100% think my team wins.
Okay.
I mean, the pitching is solid enough to get by. I know your pitching's way better. I know pitching's never a game. I understand. But, I have two dominant relievers that I feel very confident in. And
You can bring in the third inning after we chase out
100%.
Reagans, Lugo, and Blanco. Okay.
100%, exactly. This offense is so loaded. I don't know how you stand a chance. That's where it's like,
It's crazy.
I love this offense.
It's crazy. I mean, I it's funny because I look at the different rosters, and they really are like almost mirror images of each other. Well, flipped, I guess, mirror images of each other. Where I look at guys, I have a Josh Naylor, right, and a Willie in the infield, and a Brandon Nimmo in the outfield, right, which is very equivalent, I feel like, to a Seth Lugo and a
Yes.
and a Cole Irvin. Yeah.
Lugo is one
Yeah.
of the top pitchers in the league.
It's crazy. It is so crazy that because again, all these guys are obviously on the list because they're having great years, right? But it's just funny from a name recognition, right? Like you look at that
Yeah,
and you're like,
I
what
know.
in the world, right? So yeah, it would be interesting. Can Skeens and Sale and Wheeler keep those guys off the base paths? That's what decides it, probably at the end of the day.
100%.
So cool, man. All right, I love it. Well, let's move on to our second portion here. We're going to move on to our player awards. So these are awards that, honestly, I mean, I didn't make up, but I just took from real life and kind of made up, I guess. But I did it for the AL. You did it for the NL again. And so we'll kind of go through them. We have MVP, best hitter, best pitcher, best rookie, most improved player, and most disappointing player. And again, these are just our opinions, what we think. We can give a little spiel on both of them if we want to, but here we go. So on to midseason awards. I freaking love this slide, man. It's so good. All right, so for MVP, on my end, I had Ohtani. Not surprising. Again, if Acuna, it actually would have been really interesting to see if Acuna was around, if he would have been on the NL side of things. We would have had like the 2 5-point per game players up here. Because Soto's probably not a 5 guy, is he?
2018 guys.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, Ohtani, I mean, easy pick for me from an MVP perspective. Lots of pitchers certainly who could have been here, but I just look at a 5.0 hitter and I'm just like, my goodness, that is
Hard to deny.
it's dominating no matter how you look at it. So, how about on your
and
end?
that's where we're getting really controversial with the Soto pick, because there's
Okay.
an obvious exemption from this MVP list, and it would be a 4.99 points per game Aaron Judge. But this is where I got really pretentious about MVP.
Okay.
And I had thought that the Mets got him so late in this MVP race that I don't know if, for the National League's sake, where he was the most valuable in the National League at the time. I think
Okay.
Soto has been the most valuable piece in the National League.
That
He
is
has-
interesting.
I think the Mets are some of their parts, whereas Judge is a humongous part of that sum. But Soto and Steer, of course, like I already mentioned,
Yeah.
are keeping that Phillies team afloat. And I think to their respective teams, I think Soto has been more valuable to the Phillies than Judge has been to the Mets, which is no knock on Judge.
Man.
But for most valuable player, I think it goes to Juan Soto.
That is flawless logic. Flawless logic. And I love it so much because I'm thinking about it, because obviously, like, Brendan hasn't had Ohtani all year. I feel like I could theoretically make the argument that Ohtani is helping him stay in the playoffs. Theoretically, like, that obviously was a huge acquisition for him. But I also think he already had a decent team as it is. So that is interesting. I don't know off the top of my head.
It was even tough for me because, like, I'm still. That means I'm excluding a month for the
Yeah.
Mets where they had
Yeah.
Aaron Judge who had an OPS of almost 1400.
Yeah.
So that was like, I mean, is it really that worth it? But it's like, I don't know if this Phillies team is where it is without Juan Soto.
Yeah.
Whereas the Mets they got so many solid pieces that are already helping them. I don't know if I think they'd still be winning games.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not blowing teams out anyways. But the Phillies team
Might
I
not
mean,
be.
they might not be blowing out teams or winning games without these two
Yeah.
guys. So,
That's a
I
really
had to go
good
Juan.
point. God, it's a really good point. All right.
And I had saving grace for our next category too.
Yeah,
So
you
I had
did,
to
and
build
honestly,
myself out.
I was just saying. Now that you say that, I'm like, God, if I would have just thought about that, my MVP could have been different. Because for best hitter, I put Ohtani obviously as well because he's a 5.0 hitter, which again I think makes a lot more sense from an MVP perspective. I maybe could have gone a different way. I could have gone a Skeens or a Wheeler, something like that maybe. But I mean, gosh, J-Ram could freaking be in there for me too. Like, he could be part of that conversation too. But
100%.
I think Ohtani makes a lot of sense for a lot of what I kind of mentioned earlier.
No, I mean, Otani's going to be the most valuable of anywhere he's at.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what he's doing. It doesn't matter if he's only a pitcher in this league, if he's only a hitter, if he's doing both. He's going to be the most valuable guy. And that's where I was at with Judge. Like, Judge is so freaking good. How do I not put him on here?
Yeah.
But I had to be pretentious about it, and that's where we're at now. But I had to put him at best hitter. It's obviously he's the best hitter.
Yep.
There's no way. But most valuable, that's where we get pretentious.
Yep, I
That's
completely
where we
agree.
start getting, well, actually. So, yeah. Yeah, we had to go with best hitter for Jidge.
You're right, and it's actually funny because in this next category, this is where I was a little more pretentious with best pitcher, because I went Chris Sale, and I'm pretty sure Scooball has more points per game than Sale does.
No.
Or is Sale number one?
By a point.
Is Sale number one? Okay, maybe Sale is number one then. Okay, so when I was going through it, because I kind of combined this with going through the lineups and stuff, right? And having to choose one per team and stuff like that. And I looked at Sale and I'm like, okay, Sale has been really consistent all year. I don't think he's had a negative game at any point in time. He's maybe had like 1 or 2 single-digit games. I don't think he's had a negative game. Whereas I believe Wheeler has had one. Skeens, I didn't think had necessarily pitched long enough to put it there. I feel like, and Sale again is averaging more points, and so that's why I ended up going with him. And I think he's just been the best pitcher in the league in terms of consistency, as well as obviously points per game too. But that was kind of my criteria for the best pitcher side of things.
Yeah, for me, it was a 2-man race between Gilbert and Lugo, and I kind of gave the nod. I gave the nod to Lugo a little bit. I think he's been a little more consistent than Gilbert. Again, he's never gone negative.
Yep.
He's in the same boat with that. And again, has the most points throughout the year. So it's really hard to deny Lugo at how well he's been doing. Which I was shocked to put any type of list where this guy's number one.
Crazy.
It's freaking Seth Lugo.
Crazy.
What's going on? But it was hard to deny it, and he's been so beneficial to this Giants team.
Yeah.
So yeah, it felt like the obvious pick, even though I think there could easily be a conversation between Lugo and Gilbert.
Yeah.
Still gave the nod to Lugo.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, I think. Again, especially from a consistency standpoint. All right, next, best rookie this year. So on the AL side of things, pretty simple for me. Skeens, he's been ridiculous this year. Not to shame myself, I guess, but I definitely inquired if he was available in any capacity, and Gary shut me down pretty quickly, as he should have, yeah. But yeah, I mean, the dude's just been stupid good. I remember when we were doing the draft, I think Skeens, I can't remember if he picked him second or third. But some other guys in the league were talking about how they didn't necessarily want to draft him that high. They didn't want to take a risk on a pitcher, right?
Well, it was like he had 1 year at Air Force, goes to LSU, and then lights the world on fire.
Yep.
Has an unbelievable workload on him for innings. Gets thrown into where he's being used properly by the Pirates, but still pitching a full season.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, he's one of the best arms we've ever seen.
Yep.
That's kind of the problem. It's like this arm is so precious that it's just going to explode and shatter into a million pieces.
Yeah.
I'd say the Pirates have done a really exemplary job with moving him along and building him up. And I think it's probably going to be the model for a lot of pitchers going forward if this ends up working out, which so far, just game to the bigs. I think that means it worked. Anything now is just like you're trying to win ball games.
Yep.
But you're trying to develop a pitcher like this guy. I think teams are going to model that.
How can you not? How can you not? You'd be stupid not to, right?
Yeah. That's where it's just like, does it work with every guy, or is this guy just an unbelievable natural athlete? I mean, I don't want to use it, but he's just got like that farm boy Nolan Ryan build to him.
Yeah.
Like you can throw anything at the guy and he'll be fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So I don't know if he's just a freak of an athlete where he's going to be okay, or if you can you have Hagen Smith or Chase Burns do the same thing and they'll be amazing. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like Paul is just like unbelievable.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Easy rookie of the year candidate.
Yeah.
Then for my end, honestly, it was all the rookies are in the AL. I don't know if anyone knows this, but if you go through the rookies, all the decent ones are having a good year.
Yeah.
AL guys.
Yeah.
So this decision was pretty easy for me because I think after that, after Volpe, it was like Mason Wynn, which I love Mason Wynn, but I'm not going to have him over Volpe.
Yeah.
So this for me was like a no doubt. I mean, guys putting up 3 points a game again on a Phillies team that definitely is needing of him.
Yep.
So yeah, best rookie for me by far. After last year, I think it was he had a very slow start. I think Yankee fans were calling for his head early on.
Yep.
Then started to get together, And now this year he's blossoming. So I'm very happy to see that. He's great prospect, great athlete. So yeah, my best rookie for right now.
Awesome. Love it. I think that's great. Next up is most improved for this year. For me, Tanner Houck. And honestly, this one was tough. There were definitely some no names. And by no names, I mean guys who, had previous 5-something ERA averages and that kind of stuff, or hadn't hit over 220 in their career. But he's just been something else this year. He never really has been like a guy, right? Like always kind of in and out of the rotation sometimes, whether it be going to the pen or going to AAA or whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden this year, he kind of found something, it seems like, and he's been pitching really, really well. Obviously, Steven is loving having him as an option, not expecting him to have that kind of year this year. So I was really, really, when I was going through some of the numbers, just really, really impressed at kind of what he's done this year. I didn't look at any of the, outside statistics outside of what Fantrax gives us for the most part. But he's been having a really, really good year for Steven.
I think the thing he found was Andrew Bailey, the Red Sox pitching coach. That guy's a miracle worker.
Could be.
That whole top to bottom, Cutter Crawford is another example where it's just a fringy guy and is having a career year. I don't think it's a coincidence that these Red Sox players who are just kind of crappy pitchers last year are all of a sudden just blowing guys away. I don't know where.
If only one thing's changed, right?
Yeah, you gotta do the math on that one. Yep. Well, Champ Bloom's gone, so maybe it's Champ Bloom.
True. We'd have to ask Josh. We'd have to ask Josh. He'd know.
Yes. Yeah, that was chump for the water. I'm gonna be honest with you. And then of course on my end I have Eric Fetty Wap. This is kind of an obvious choice for me because last year started 27 games for the Nationals, averaged 8.8 points a game as a starter.
Yeah, atrocious.
Close, dude. That's not really rosterable. That sucks.
Yeah.
Had a 5.81 ERA. 1.6 WHIP. Like this guy's
atrocious.
From the minors.
Atrocious.
This year, 15.6 a game. Has already surpassed his K totals from all of last year as of right now. Is about to surpass his innings pitch total as well. So he's just getting a higher workload as well. He's going deeper into ball games, not getting blown out. And honestly, like 15 a game from a guy that was probably not even rosterable.
Yeah,
that's
nuts.
Huge
Difference.
And I forgot to look if he was the Marlins all year. I think they did roster him.
Okay,
let's take a look when they acquired him. And Trans Fantasy, please, Fantrax, don't be a loser. Please load.
Well, while you're looking at that,
here it is.
Oh, go ahead.
He claimed for $15 in the auction. It looks
there you
like by the Marlins.
Easy enough.
That's a solid 15. Which let's say this: $15 is so much money for a crappy pitcher.
Yeah,
that gets you 8.8 a game. What
he's actually getting $15 worth of value.
It's like a worse Jack Flaherty almost, or like a better Jack Flaherty. Where it's like I'm finally getting some of the value that's even close to what it's supposed to be.
And I don't know about you, but like when I was going through and looking at a lot of, especially for most improved, it was crazy to me how many guys I saw, and I'm like, man, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I just very vividly remember the conversation. Like a guy like Fetty, like he was a guy when he first came up, people were excited about him. Like thought he was going to be, good for Washington. He was going to stick in their rotation, be a number 2, number 3 type guy, and then just flamed out. And there were so many of those guys. But there were also guys, like I said, that were like these two who actually did finally turn around after like 3 or 4 years, which if you're lucky enough to find them, it's a huge kind of gold mine.
Absolutely. It's just lucky few that are able to reap the benefits of that.
Correct. Well, and speaking of disappointment, most disappointing players this year, for me, by far and away, Snell. And I know he's had injury issues, like all this kind of stuff, but I think Sam paid a good amount for him. And he's done nothing outside of be kind of injured. Even when he has pitched, he's been trash. It'll be interesting to see if he can, come back in some capacity and be good. Maybe he'll be most improved next year. I don't know, but it's been abysmal. I can't even remember off the top of my head if he's had like a double-digit start. And if it has, it's been like low teens. And he's only had, I think, like 6 or 7 starts a year this year, maybe.
He
But
sucks.
yeah, he's just bad. He's just
It's not
bad.
surprising, only because like, which I guess this is me being super annoying, where it's like, well, actually, I knew the whole time. But
You did,
I
Cal.
think
It's okay.
if you look at his if you look at his season last year, I think everyone was saying like as a Cy Young winner he was, is just like
Yep.
you look past like one layer of his stats and everything below that, like his metrics suck. So and sure enough, he sits out because he got Boris pretty much this offseason.
Yep.
And then just gets absolutely obliterated. So 100% disappointing, like by far the most disappointing on the list, but maybe not surprising, which is
Correct.
sad. But
Correct.
I would say absolutely go from Cy Young to, well, I mean,
It's
not
just
even
bad.
rosterable at this point. It just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So on my end of it, I had Matt Olson for the Giants, which, look, Matt Olson, we're talking about a guy who hit 54 homers last year.
Yep.
And right now has an OPS of like around 700, which is not like that bad. It's like, I think around league average, maybe just like a little bit below league average.
Yep.
But he also had 1,000 OPS last year. So that's a huge jump up.
That's a massive.
Yeah, you're also paying $38
Yep.
for him, which I could pay $38 for Bryce Harper.
Yep.
It seemed.
Yep.
Which is not fair to make that comparison, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Well, but that's part of this, though, right? Is like the disappointing piece is also that I paid X amount of dollars for this player, expecting I was going to get that value, right?
Yeah.
When who has Fetty? Frank Marlins, right?
Marlins. Yes.
Yeah, when Frank paid $15 for Fetty, he wasn't expecting $15 in value from Fetty, right?
No,
he was expecting
felt
just
like I
to,
did with
to
Mike Michaelis.
exactly.
He was like, oh,
he needs it. He needed a fifth starter, right? So you had to pay for him. But yeah, with these guys, you're paying to get that production because you're thinking it's pretty much guaranteed, right? So that's definitely a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about 4.6 a game last year to 2.8. That's just. It's
Nuts.
just a humongous drop off, but something's in the water at Atlanta, or not in the water.
Dude, that's what I was gonna say is what is going on in Atlanta?
No cheating. They ban cheating in Atlanta.
Fair enough.
Has to be it. I don't know. I'm just gonna throw it out there. But how does the whole lineup? It's like the 2017 Astros. It's like how does the whole lineup, like the Astros splits at home versus what they were afterwards?
Yeah.
How does the entire lineup go from ungodly to just like garbage?
Well, do you think it has anything to do with Acuna?
I think maybe it's Ozuna. I think it might be.
Really?
I don't know. I don't actually know.
I was gonna say, I was like, you got some news, you got some something to break for us here.
I don't actually know.
I don't
He's
either.
the only good player on the team right now.
Yeah, well, but that's I don't know. It's very weird. I feel like so many people, myself included, were huge Braves fans because they were. It seemed like they were doing things right. They were developing these crazy young superstars. They had this awesome core of players. And then now that's like
crimes and contract systems. Yeah,
true, 100%, 100%. But
probably some labor laws.
100% has to be.
Yeah.
But it's just weird, right? Like it doesn't that stuff just shouldn't happen. It feels like.
No, I don't know what's going on, but we gotta get to the bottom of this because it's a league-wide emergency.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so that wraps up our midseason player awards. So now for our last. But certainly not least section of our All-Star pod here is our midseason team awards. And this is for ABL teams, not for MLB teams. And so I'm not gonna preface what they are as we go through. I'm just gonna call them out as we go slide to slide. But we have some good ones here and some interesting ones, and hopefully maybe this will be something that gets talked about in some capacity or whatever it might be. But so. Mid-season team awards. Moving to our first team, we went with a most improved team. And again, I guess theoretically could have looked at this the same way. I think you and I, or you could have looked at it a couple different ways. I think you and I looked at it the same way in saying that we looked at a team from last year to this year and who has improved. I think is how we kind of took it. And so for me, I took your dad's team, and I took the Red Sox, and part of it was because I'm still hanging on, and I don't want to feel bad about picking them to win the East. But also, I think when we looked at all of the moves he made early on, his team was by far and away better than what it was going into the year.
Yeah.
And then even this year, even though he hasn't made as many moves this year, I still look at his roster, and I'm like, it's a halfway decent roster. Like, it's not bad, in any way, shape, or form. And so, in just looking at a lot of the other AL teams, there were a couple of other options that I could have chosen from, but I felt like him in general has not only done the most, but then I see it out of his team every now and then too. That like, hey, here's the potential.
He's already matched his win total from last year now, so that's already humongous improvement, I would say. So no, and even then, I think if you look a little deeper and look at the contract structures on some of these guys, I mean he's got rid of some seriously bad contracts and have freed up a future for himself. So that's another way to look at it too. Is that I mean going forward, like any team can just like throw everything overboard and then just start from scratch and then good luck in the auction, but to actually set yourself up for success for the future, I think he's done a pretty solid job of that going for like years to come with contracts. So
I agree.
That's pretty fair. On my end of things, for me, this is a slam dunk. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Last year, the Miami Marlins had a grand total of 2 wins, and currently, as we stand, they are sitting at 26-19. So that is a
crazy,
massive improvement. Frank has ran a masterclass on team building with this whole squad.
Yep.
I mean, now including Salvi, Harper, Bregman, Swanson. Honestly, we'll put Haniger in there just because he's an ABL
Why
legend
not?
as far as trading is concerned.
Why not?
Matt Chapman at 3.3 a game. Honestly, just a solid roster.
Yeah.
And of course, Fetty. I mean, you got to give him some improvement for nailing that on the head. But yeah, an easy pick for most improved.
Awesome. I don't disagree in any way, shape, or form. I think he's obviously come into ABL and has done an awesome thing with that franchise, so it's been great. Next, the opposite side of things, most disappointing. So on my side, I went with, and I love the old school logo. By the way, I love the old school logo. They'll always be Oakland A's in our hearts.
100%.
But yeah, I went with the A's, and I hope I don't have to preface this, but I'm going to preface it anyway, just in case. We obviously don't hate these guys, right? We're just doing this for fun. This is just for talking points. So I'll throw that out there. But right now, David, he's sitting at 25-20 in the league. He's let me look out west. He's now 6 games behind Seth, and I remember however many weeks ago we were talking about them being kind of tied at the top and close there, and honestly, it's disappointing. One, from a record perspective, right? Just because David's a great owner, he knows what he's doing, very savvy, right? But he hasn't made any moves either. He hasn't come on and done anything to kind of stop the bleeding, so to speak. So and it's not that he still scored over 13,000 so far this year according to the standings or whatever. But it's an interesting spot I see him in, because I always feel like he's a contender. He's a guy who knows what he's doing. He's gonna have a good team. But his record's 25-20. And he hasn't been scored on a ton. So
he's ruled the division. I think the thing is that he's ruled that division for years.
Yeah.
And to see him not is just like
it's weird.
Well, it's very surprising. It's very surprising to not see it. But Seth has taken that I guess a slip down in production and just ran with it.
Yep.
And it looks like he's gonna run away with the West as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a solid pick. But for me, this was another. It just made it real easy. We're staying in the division here, obviously. But the Atlanta Braves.
Yep.
And it's anytime you go from winning your division to being last in your division, you're going to be on this list. Only one returning player from last year's lineup to this year's. And
that's crazy.
Well, that's for hitting. I didn't go through the whole rotation, but as far as hitting is concerned, only Alejandro Kirk from last year returned.
Ton of turnover.
Yeah, huge.
That's
turnover.
hard.
Not for the best, not for the best it seems. So yeah, Braves taking a dive, unfortunately, which is a bummer. Just because, I mean, not the time to take a dive when the entire division got way better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think to your point, like I feel like most of us who have been in here for multiple years now, and even the first year guys now too, are realizing that it's okay to go into the auction with money, but you don't want to go into the auction with money and have to fill out 75% of your roster, right? Like even if you have to take, even if you have to keep a guy an extra year at a price you don't love, there's a good chance it's going to be better than what you're going to come out of the auction with, right?
Yes.
I think a lot of people are like, I think about this all the time and about how bad of a decision it was. But when I traded Steven for Joe Ryan, I mean, he's a
yeah.
$9 pitcher now, and I could have him for 3 more years right now at that price. And I got scared because I was like, oh, he's a pitcher. I don't really want long-term commitment with him. I don't know if he's going to be good yet, etc. And now he's going to go back into the pool next year, and his price is going to at least triple, right?
I think Joe Ryan was one of my first welcome to the ABL moments, just because I think I tried to I think I sent an offer form when I first joined, and looking back on it, it was insulting. But I was like, I can't even get Joe Ryan in this league. What the hell am I doing? This is hard, man. This is tough.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, I'm like, dude, what are you even thinking trying to get after Joe Ryan? So yeah, it was definitely a wake up call.
I love it. Yeah, I feel it for sure, but makes sense. All right, let's move on to the next one. So we looked at pitching staffs and hitting lineups, I guess, and we'll talk about pitching first. For me, this was honestly an incredibly easy decision. The AL does have some good staffs in it for sure, but Detroit, just kind of going down the line here, they have Zach Eflin 13.1, Bryce Miller 15.2, Pivetta 14.9, Severino 13.8, Stone 14.9, Thorpe 14.3, Lopez 17.0, Jared Jones 15.4, Ryan Weathers 13.2. He's just got so many options, and that doesn't even count like Turnbull, who hasn't been great. He's 9.1. Like, he's been fine, but again, as like your 8th starter, that's not a bad place to be at. And then on top of that, he's got he's got 3 Sparps that are over 6 points a game, which is again nuts. And then he's got another 3 just pitchers in general that are over 4 a game. So, like, to me, it's not even close. Like, John has a stupid deep, and it's not even, he's got high end, right? It is just deep across the board. So easy decision for me.
Yeah, mine's a little bit tougher. There's kind of a closer gap between, but the Cardinals have the highest point totals in the pitching for a reason. And they just got just top to bottom solid staff. So we got, let's see, Andrew Abbott right now is slotted in at the starter spot, but 15 a game for Abbott, 18 for Gray, which I don't know. I mean, Gray was, I think everyone in Cardinal Nation was like, okay, we finally got an ace. He's been an ace, so I'm very happy.
Which is good. Gray.
Yeah, and then Justin Steele, of course, return to form. 16 points a game. Christopher Sanchez, 15 a game. John Gray, 11 a game, which is not like incredible, but then you still got a reliever.
Yep.
And Ryan Helsley was 7.3 a game.
Stupid.
As a closer. I mean,
Hector Neris at over 5.
Yeah, it's like every night you're gonna get dunked on the pitching end of things. So yeah, it's not a fun time to have to play the Cardinals at all. So yeah, in pitching, this much pitching makes it very hard to like get any type of ground in a day. Yeah, like you're just gonna be basically net zero on a good day for you with this pitching staff. So yeah, it's filthy.
Crazy. All right, let's move on to best hitting. For me, this was a little bit surprising as I was going through, but I had to give the nod to him, and part of it's because he's got Ohtani, who's killing it. But Brendan, he has a really good lineup of guys, and he's actually semi deep too. He's got a decent amount of 2+ point per game guys on his bench. But looking at guys, Ketel Marte is almost a 4.0 player. Brooks Lee obviously has come in and been awesome for the Twins right now. He's still got Arenado, who's only a 2.6 player right now, so certainly could improve. Yelich, as we all know, is apparently the MVP of the league this year. He's a 4.3 right now, and then Ohtani's sitting at 5.1. But he's got, outside of that, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other players that are above 2 fantasy points per game. So I mean, it's, regardless of who he's plugging in on a day-to-day basis, he's probably sitting in a pretty good spot. And he's got guys who are in the minors on his bench right now too, who could easily come up and improve on that and be way better. 100%. So that would not surprise me at all.
And for my end of things, it was a pretty close matchup, which again, it was Dodgers being involved, because Dodgers being included in the pitching and hitting category is incredible.
Yep.
But it was between Giants and Dodgers. Giants had the guys, the ones who are putting over maybe 4 points a game. But I still the tiebreaker for me was depth, because these guys, I mean, both Giants and Dodgers are so close in points that I just went with what would I feel more comfortable with a day to day. and the Dodgers' depth I would feel a lot better with. But top to bottom, it's still a phenomenal lineup. We got Freddie Freeman, Gorman, Devers, Mason Wynn, the unbelievably versatile Willie Castro.
Dude, I love Willie.
I mean,
Love me some
the
Willie.
guy's a legend. Put him in the relief slot. We'll call it good. Tyler Bro-Neal plays all outfield positions. Maybe not very well, but he does play them. Adolis Garcia in right, and then Lindor with I don't want to say resurgence, but like Lindor is.
Yeah.
I mean, he was struggling in that with the being that Mets tenure, and now he's absolutely coming into his own again.
Playing well, yeah.
Yeah, playing like old Frankie. So,
Yep.
yeah, this Dodgers lineup is sick. It's nasty. Even on the bench, they got Charlie Blackmon with 3 points a game.
It's crazy.
Tommy Pham with 2.8 a game. So, yeah, good luck. Good luck playing this lineup week in, week out.
Yep. Love it. Okay, let's move on to the next one here. We got 3 more. These are ones that I just kind of made up. Thought they'd be kind of interesting to look at. So first one, division leader most likely to lose round 1. And for me, I felt like it was pretty easy. You look at Steven in Baltimore, you're probably not going to pick him. You look at Seth, I guess, out west, you could theoretically pick him, but I feel like if you asked most people in ABL right now who they would pick, Seth or me, they'd probably pick Seth, I would think, just with how my team's been. Now, this all changes if I get Darvish, if I get Verlander, if I get Wicks, if I get Waldrop all back by playoff time, because that changes what my staff looks like. But I kind of went with right now, right, what we kind of have. And I think I would certainly choose myself as being the team to lose in round 1.
Yeah, I saw right through this charade. This is clearly just like a reverse jinx. I know exactly what this is. It's very genius. You're just like, oh man, listen. You guys are great. I mean, I'm just happy to be here. You go out, you put up 400 points in round 1, and everyone goes home.
So the only reason I'm gonna reject that is because if I get a chance to play Brendan in the first round, you better freaking believe I'm picking his ass.
Absolutely.
So if I pick his ass, I better not lose to him.
Live by this or die by this.
100%, brother. 100%.
My end of things, there was no knock on the Mets team. Obviously, I've been singing the Mets praises for a while,
Yep.
but when we get to compare them against the Giants and the Cardinals, I think the Mets are pale in comparison. Unfortunately, no matter how much they've juiced this team up, it's just you cannot compete. I don't think on that level consistently the way they are. So Mets for me were a pretty easy pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think again we've talked about the NL. We've sung their praises all year. Guys are killing it out there. So yeah, not surprising. All right, next one. Also probably a very easy question for you to answer.
Absolutely. This was thank you.
A non-division leader, a current non-division leader, most likely to win it all this year. For me, it was John in Detroit. I think, but in a points perspective, I think he's actually the top AL scoring team. If I remember correctly, I can look that up real quick. But he obviously has a deep team. I talked about his staff is so good. Let's see, 14-1 versus he's just below Steven. So he's less than 100 points from Steven. But yeah, I think he's got a really good shot to make some noise in the playoffs and potentially see Steven kind of in that championship game for the AL and potentially take it home. So would not be surprised if I saw that.
Right, absolutely. And for me, it's like when you're top 2 in hitting and pitching, I'm not going to ignore that. So I think it's more of like an anomaly that this Dodger team is not in first, anyways.
Correct.
So it might just be a scheduling error. I don't know, but the Dodgers team, I think, will win it all anyways. So that's just maybe a hot take, but that's what we're putting out there. It's not really a hot take, but they're not winning the division.
I was just saying
something.
It's not because we still have you pick the Dodgers, I pick the Cardinals, right? We still got that going.
True.
So
it's true.
We'll have to wait and see how it ends up happening here. All right, and then our last award, and this is I don't know, I thought this was a really cool award. I think it probably made us think a good amount. I love your pick for obvious reasons, but our last award this year is for the team most likely to win it all next year that is currently a non-playoff team. And so I stuck with the AL Central because I know Mark is a great owner. I've seen him do some great things with his team, from tearing everything down to building it all back up. He took an interesting route along with Brian from Arizona last year of drafting some injured pitchers in the auction, or guys who weren't going to come back for a while. So he kind of has the opportunity next year, I feel like, on a budget to really improve his team. I think he's got a ton of first round picks this year too, so he could do some damage there. I think he's got a really, really good shot. I don't know what my team's going to look like next year. I got a ton coming off the books again. So we'll see how that works. John, I think, should be pretty steady for the most part. So I could really see Mark coming up and making some noise in the AL next year.
Right. And my pick is obviously a little bit of recency bias, but
Yeah.
I think we'd even said going into it is that like this Nationals team is not set up just for this year; it's for beyond. And the whole Nationals rotation is all controllable, cheap pitching, very solid pitching. By the way, I mean we're still getting guys that are pitching, over 12 points a game that are on like a couple dollars a salary. So the team is so set up to go hard in the auction on hitting. And even then, they still have Bobby Witt, holding that offense down.
Crazy.
So they can really do whatever they want from here on and just build a super team. And this might be another hot take, but the NL East is built to win this year.
Yeah.
That's going to be mayhem come next year.
Yep.
And I think through the chaos, the Nationals will emerge and probably be like a division leader or division winner. And from there, I mean, it's just coin flips.
Yeah.
Some would say.
Yep.
To get to that promise land.
Yeah, and I don't think. Yeah, thinking about all the other 4 NL East teams, I don't know all their roster off the top of my head, but I don't remember seeing any of those teams and being like, oh, they're going to be good for next year, or they're going to be set up long term. Obviously every team has pieces, right? But,
yeah, I think the closest team would be maybe like a Phillies team, just because they do have plenty of young players.
Yeah.
That could probably stick around. Like I don't know if like you can include like Ben Rice, Volpe, Stott. There's still some offense pieces that they can hold on to, and there's still solid cheap pitching that they can still use for next year.
Yeah.
Plenty of 2024s for the pitching side of things for the Phillies, but I think if anyone was built to last, it might be the Phillies team.
Yeah, could be. Interesting stuff. Cool. Well, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That was our All-Star episode. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I know Cal and I put a decent amount of time into it, trying to make it something special. So hopefully everyone enjoyed it. Any parting words, my man? Anything you want to leave everyone with as we head into the rest of our All-Star break?
I mean, stay blessed. Honestly, like this is probably be my last show, because once Friday hits, it's over for everybody. So I'm gonna fire up the freaking game. I'm gonna go first. Well, first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna fire up NCAA, and people are calling the libs are calling it college football 25, and I disavow. It is NCAA football.
Yeah.
I'm doubling down on that one, and I'm gonna fire it up. I'm going to throttle Alabama with Georgia on exhibition mode. I don't know if I've decided my game out. Maybe I'll do All-American. I won't do Heisman. And then I will probably do a Wyoming Dynasty, and then I'll just quit the podcast.
Well, let me, as someone who shelled out the money to be able to play it early.
Yes.
It's amazing how much I missed it.
Yes.
I would highly recommend. Have you played NCAA 14 in the past few years?
Like I literally no, I have not.
So I
remember playing it.
I would stay away from All-American. I would go to varsity and start there.
Oh man.
The gameplay and not that it's impossible, but the gameplay is night and day. The controls are night and day. And so you gotta figure out how to play the game first before you try and do stuff, because I guarantee you'll go in with Georgia and play Alabama and you'll get your ass kicked on All-American.
I can't do that again. So
Guaranteed.
maybe I won't do it. Maybe I'll play like Ball State.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'll do.
Hey, I had a game against an FCS team today that almost went to overtime.
Oh man. Who were you?
Georgia Southern.
Okay.
That's
all
right.
That's fair.
One of my alma maters. That's who I'm starting my first dynasty with.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it just as a forewarning, but it is an incredible game. They took a ton of time, just tweaking everything. Obviously, there'll be some patches that'll come out. Stuff will be adjusted and changed, but it's fantastic. Recruiting feels so good. Playing the game feels so good. I haven't gotten to an off season yet. to feel the coaching carousel and all that kind of stuff. The branding in the game is awesome. The graphics are awesome. I've had no issues that has stopped me from playing. So it has been incredible. Cannot recommend it enough.
Well, it's nice knowing you guys.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
see you all later. You'll never see me again. I'm quitting the league. I'm going dark. I've quit my job. All of it.
I love it, man. I love it. You'd be amazed how many people actually did to try and become content creators for it. It's pretty incredible.
Oh, man.
But anyway, well, thanks everyone for hanging out. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll get back into some games here later this week, and good luck to everyone moving forward as we get closer to the playoffs. So with that being said, have a good rest of the week. See y'all later.
See you.